You,
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Marion County Commission, thank you for joining us. Today is September the 17th, 2019, and we're in the Marion County Auditorium Chambers located at 601 Southeast 25th Avenue. This is our regularly scheduled board meeting of county commissioners. And I would like to invite those of you who are in the audience with us to please silence any of your electronic devices. If you need to have a conversation with anyone inside the auditorium, I will ask you to please take that conversation out into the foyer. You will still be able to hear the proceedings going on, and I thank you for that. I would also like to ask you to stand. Commissioner Zalek is going to lead us in our invocation and our pledge.
Bow your heads with me. Lord, we come before you today and thank you for the incredible opportunity to serve the citizens of Marion County. We ask that you would keep those that are defending our country afar and near safe, and that you would continue to protect this great nation. Lord, we ask for those that continue to serve every day as our first responders here, and the men and women that are out on the streets and doing the work of Marion County, that you will keep them safe and that you will continue to bless them. Lord, we pray for the families of Marion County, that you will abundantly give to the families, that you will continue to strengthen the foundation of your work here. Lord, we pray as it's election day that your will would be done. And Lord, we ask that your blessing continue to be on the Constitution of the United States as we celebrate Constitution Day. Lord, we love you. We thank you for what you've done in this country and the blessing we have to speak and to pray. And we do all of this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for such a nice prayer, Commissioner Zalek, to get us started today.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Clerk, if you could please give roll call for us.
Yes, Chairman Stone.
Here.
Vice Chairman Moore.
here.
Commissioner Bryant. Here. Commissioner Gold. Here. Commissioner Zalek.
Here.
I'd like to offer our announcements for this day. September the 17th, which is this afternoon at 2 p.m., we will continue our commission meeting and review our zoning. So I invite you all that are here with us this morning, if you'd like to return, please do so. On September the 24th at 4 p.m., we will have the Ocala-Marion County Transportation Planning and organization, and again, that takes place on the fourth Tuesday of every month. On September the 26th at 6:50 p.m., there will be a public hearing to consider the adoption of the Rainbow Lakes Estates fiscal year 19 and 20 budget. That same evening at 7 p.m., we will have a public hearing to consider the adoption of the fiscal year 2019-2020 budget for the entire county. On October the 1st at 9 a.m., we will be back in these chambers for our regularly scheduled meeting on the first Tuesday of the month. So with that, that will take us into our first item, proclamations and presentations.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Bryant. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And to start us off with our presentations will be Kevin Shealy, Director for the Chamber and Economic Development.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kevin Shealy with the Ocala-Marion County Chamber and Economic Partnership. I'm pleased to be with you today. I have a very brief presentation, a copy of which I've already laid at your desk. As you will recall, 4 years ago, the CEP partnered with the county. You allowed us to put together a task force of a variety of industries, road building, home building, commercial, realtors, appraisers, engineers, a wide variety, to look at issues regarding funding for both roads and first responders. And we came back with a series of recommendations, which the commission at that point took the keystone of those regarding the putting on the ballot in 2016 the local option sales tax to fund transportation infrastructure as well as first responder needs. That will sunset next year. We have brought our task force back together to continue to look at those items. They looked at a variety of data, looked at other funding sources, looked at what's being accomplished, looked at what still needs to be accomplished. And so what you have is a unanimous recommendation from this group to, again, put to the voters to extend the local option sales tax for infrastructure and first responders in November of 2020. Obviously, that's a ways up from now, but under the new regulations from the Tennessee. Wow, that was a flashback. From the Florida General Assembly, we're now having to push that to a general election. So again, for November of 2020. Again, you have that recommendation, and I'd be happy to answer any questions regarding that or anything else you might have. It's been a while since I've been with you regarding what's going on in economic development.
Yes, Commissioner?
Saw you at Rotary, your presentation there a week or so ago. What else you got going?
We're very excited. We're looking into this autumn, and we're expecting to make several significant announcements. One that we've been working on for a while, as you know, with the larger the project, the longer the timeline. But we think there's a significant project that we will be able to announce this fall. And in fact, I would tell you that before the end of this year, I anticipate being with you to talk about a significant new distribution facility, a significant manufacturing facility, coming to you to talk about a new technology company that wants to relocate and expand here in our community, and maybe some major expansions as well. So very excited as we look at the economic forecast and continuing to see investment in job creation, and not just any jobs, but jobs that continue to push up our average wage.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shealy. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
Just one item, if I could. One of the things that's been a priority for us is our partnership with the school system and Marion Technical College and the College of Central Florida, really combining the business community, local government, and our education providers to create that seamless transition and skills-based learning. One of the things that we were able to do last week that I thought was very important was we were able to present a check for $20,000 from the CEP to the school system to fund a new welding lab at MTI. A year ago, the school system asked us to put together a group of businesses. We brought 16 manufacturers, all in the welding, who are involved in welding, to talk about what their needs were. They were able to share with the school system and MTC how really their needs were different than what were being trained. They responded very well to that, and so starting this fall, all of the training at MTC now reflects the needs of our industry. And on top of that, we've been able to, with this new lab, extend that down into the secondary level. So excited to be able to respond to the needs of business for skills that produce higher wage jobs. And it's another great example of how we're partnering together.
Again, the partnership continues to be very strong, not just with the Marion County Commission, but across the entire community. So we appreciate all of the work of you and your team, and we're looking forward to those announcements coming soon.
So are we. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Have a great day. Next, I'm going to believe that these very nice decorations are from the next group, and I'm grateful for what we have before us. And I believe Commissioner Bryan is going to offer the proclamation for Constitution Week. So if you'd like to join me around the front. Thank you for doing that. Okay. Sharon Ernest, as well as the rest of your committee, if you'd like to invite them all forward, we invite you all to join us.
Oh, no. Come on, ladies. You don't get to do that. And I think we're going to find an occasion for every board meeting now. The decorations are lovely. Y'all did a beautiful job. Oh, thank you, Susan. They're wonderful. Come on. How are you? Good to see you, Elizabeth. Good to see you. Hi, how are you? I'm good. How are you? Well, ladies, remember last year when we talked about this and we talked about you providing some decorations, and it's hard to believe that it's been a year already. But here we are. You did a beautiful job. Everything looks absolutely wonderful. And like I said, I think we're going to come up with an occasion for every board meeting for you to decorate. Okay, Susan? On a serious note, keeping our Constitution alive is so very, very vital to our American way of life. And we all just want to thank you so much for all that you do to make sure that we do that. So with that, we have a proclamation by the Board of County Commissioners of Marion County, Florida. Whereas it is the privilege and duty of all Americans to commemorate the 232nd anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America with appropriate ceremonies and activities. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 17th through September 23rd as Constitution Week. And whereas it is fitting and proper to accord official recognition to this magnificent document and its memorable anniversary and to the patriotic celebrations that will commemorate it. And whereas the National Society Daughters of the American Revolution is organizing local activities to commemorate this special observation. Now, therefore, the Board of County Commissioners of Marion County, Florida, by the virtue of the authority vested in us, do hereby proclaim the week of September 17th through the 23rd, 2019, be designated as Constitution Week. Duly proclaimed this 17th day of September 2019, as you can see, signed by all 5 county commissioners and attested to by David Elsperman, clerk of the court. So Sharon, I'm going to hand that to you. And then also, I'm going to hand this to you to start. I'm sure that you have a few things you'd like to say. Sure. There you go. You want me to hold it up? Whatever you want to do. You can pass it to one of them. Here, why don't you hold that?
Good afternoon, or good morning, I should say. My name is Sharon Ernest. I belong to the Daughters of American Revolution. And on behalf of our chapter, and more importantly, on behalf of Tevis Fitzpatrick, who should have been here today receiving this, as you may or may not know, she left us a couple weeks ago. The woman was very near and dear to my heart. I referred to her as my adopted mom. So when Beth had asked me if I would receive this on her behalf, I was humbled and honored to do that. So from our chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, and on behalf of Tevis Fitzpatrick, I thank you.
Okay, can you tell us about any activities that you have this week in commemoration?
This afternoon, we'd be glad to have any of you come to First Presbyterian Church around 3:30, 3:45. We're going to meet with the Boy Scouts. They'll be ringing the bells. The bells are rung all across America in honor of Constitution Day. And just a slight bit of history. Why do we celebrate Constitution Day? Because in 1955, the Daughters of the American Revolution petitioned Congress asking that this day be proclaimed Constitution Day. And in 1956, then President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed that proclamation into law. You mentioned Law 915. So this is the day that we celebrate. And then later in 2002, it was proclaimed by then President Bush that the entire week, the 17th to the 23rd, would be known as Constitution Week. And we're proud to be daughters and to continue this great tradition of the living document, the U.S. Constitution.
Thank you so much. And thank you, ladies, for being here, and thank you for bringing this to the public's attention every year and for everything that you do to make sure that we keep our Constitution alive and that we are making sure that people understand it. So thank you.
We should stand around because Tevis would be here.
Yes.
Do you want to,
to cut it forward?
Want to come forward?
We'll come
Okay,
forward.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
You want us to come
Okay.
forward? Come on.
Okay, he wants us to come up. Come on, this is it.
Yes, ma'am, sure. Anybody else have phones you want?
We may have to like double layer it. You can come up behind. There we go.
Sir, I think I'll still be able to get you through right here.
Okay. We got lots of phones, so. 1, 2, 3.
One, two, three, and smile.
Uh-oh. I don't know whose this one is, but it has a passcode and I let it time out, so. Oops.
That's Miss Sharon's.
Sharon.
You can't do that, Miss Sharon. You gotta, gotta make sure you take a real good one on that one.
One, two, three. Okay, last one. This one's Commissioner Moore's, so make a funny face. You ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I think you're leaving here all day, but
Okay.
you don't
Just
want
put it
down.
back down.
Yeah, put it right there, that's good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Stay here. I'm gonna give it back to you in a second.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you again, ladies, and we appreciate the decorations that you've brought for us to enjoy as well. Next, we're going to have a proclamation, and this will be for Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, and I'd like to invite Sharon Jank back, who is the chair of the Cancer Leadership Council, UF Shands Cancer Center, and Commissioner Moore is going to present this one.
And just an interesting story how Sharon and I got to know each other. My son was up at Shands battling leukemia, and her daughter was in the room next to him. And that's how we got to know each other, being parents out in the hallway when your kids are up at Shands. So, great friend, but I wish we met under different circumstances, but it's a great thing because she's champion. As you just saw, she was here for Constitution Week. Sharon is involved in so much in this community and just such a great person. And then actually, Kathy's daughter was also over there visiting Sharon's daughter. Anyway. If it looks like a little bit of family here, it is. And since I'm getting older, give me 1 second here.
My daughter, Kathy, her second mom.
Kathy, the second mom.
Same with
And Kathy's only 29.
Yeah.
Because Kathy's technically a year older than me. So she's only 29. What?
Over 40 glasses.
Yeah, the young whippersnapper on the commission making fun of me having to put on glasses to read. Thank you. Okay, but this is, on a serious note, a proclamation on behalf of Sharon's representing UF Shands. On their behalf, going to be doing a proclamation, and it says, whereas cancer kills more children than asthma, diabetes, cystic fibrosis, congenital anomalies, thank you for the tongue twister, and pediatric AIDS combined. And whereas childhood cancer crosses all racial, ethnic, and social boundaries. And whereas cancer is the leading cause of death by disease among U.S. children between infancy and age 15, and the disease is detected in nearly 15,000 children in the U.S. each year. And whereas different types of cancer behave differently, and they grow at different rates and respond to different treatments. That is why children with cancer need treatment that is aimed at their particular kind of cancer. Whereas the majority of treatment advances in recent decades, more than 80% of children with cancer now survive 5 years or more, and overall this is a huge increase since the mid-1970s when the 5-year survival rate was less than 60%. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, we're all good. My son's alive, your daughter's alive, we're good. And by the way, just while I'm in this, pray for Jared Peltz. His daughter Caitlin is currently battling cancer at Shands. So anyway, you think about something and just anyway, sorry. Whereas treatment side effects can last for a lifetime, yes they can, for these kids. And whereas the Marion County Board of County Commissioners encourages its citizens to go gold for the month of September, now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of County Commissioners of Marion County, Florida, that the month of September 2019 is designated as Childhood Cancer Awareness Month, signed by all 5 county commissioners and attested to by David Elchberman, Clerk of the Courts. Ms. Sharon.
Thank you. And I want to thank the county commissioners for giving this proclamation every year. And I personally have had the joy of having 4 of them be personally praying for me and my daughter and my family. So County Commissioner Gold, you weren't here at the time, but I know if you were, you would have been with them all. And I thank you for your prayers and your support during that hard time. That being said, I just want to let everybody to know that UF is working hard for cures for cancer, and currently there are 52 clinical research trials and many more research projects, but 52 FDA approved. And so they're really working hard to cure childhood cancer and all cancers. So if you ever know of anybody that unfortunately is stricken with this cancer and maybe it's a tough time, I implore you to please recommend them to go up to UF for a second opinion. Thank you.
And just one other thing, Miss Kathleen, that's our deputy clerk over here, her husband James is also battling cancer right now, so keep them in your prayers and thoughts and any support you can give there as well. Yes. Any other commissioners want to say anything? Okay, we'll go ahead and take a picture. One of them's yours.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. One, two, three.
Thank you for all your support. Bye-bye. Thank you, sir. You're now in the family. Thank you.
Chief Banta will introduce the consultant.
Our next presentation this morning is from Mission Critical Partners Emergency Communication, and it will be a report. And Chief Banta is going to come forward to introduce our consultant to deliver this presentation. Good morning, Chief Banta.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioners. James Banta, Fire Chief, Marion County Fire Rescue. In May of this year, the board, along with coordination with the City of Ocala, agreed to hire Mission Critical Partners to evaluate the current status and future needs of Marion County Public Safety Communications, Emergency Communications, and call taking at both centers, including the City of Ocala. So I'd like to introduce Bonnie Manny from Mission Critical to go over their findings and answer any questions from the board, and we also have our different stakeholders represented with us today too.
Thank you.
Hello. Hope
Good
you're all
morning.
having a good morning.
Good morning, Bob.
Thank you for being with us and celebrating all of these other items before this presentation.
No, it's a wonderful day for Marion County and for our country, of course. It's a little sobering and emotional day as well when you think of our Constitution and the proclamation for cancer. It's always a battle, and our prayers and thoughts are with all of you that have survivors and that are currently battling. With that, though, I do need to go into our presentation, and we'll start right in with our agenda, what I would like to cover this morning. Chief Banta already kind of took care of some introductions, but I'm going to add a few more that will cover our team, not only our Mission Criticals partner team, but also the public safety team that was put together between the county and the city. We're going to just review the project overview, the approach that we took. One question we always ask when we do a project is, what is the definition of success for that project? So we'll just give you little highlights there. And then dive into the project, the report review as from a very high level. This was rather a lengthy report, so we'd want to just keep this brief and concise as possible. And then, again, provide an opportunity for any questions that you may have. And Commissioner Bryant, nice to see you again. Commissioner Gold, I know we have not met face-to-face, but a pleasure to finally get to meet you. This was our project team. As you can see, it is quite extensive. So as we go through the report, I will be upfront and transparent. There might be a question or two that I might not be able to answer. I do not want to misinterpret one of my colleagues or subject matter experts' interpretations of their of the results that they came to be. If that does occur, I will gladly take a note on that and get back to you with that response. This was what we call a project core team that was put together in cooperation with the joint entities of the county and the city. As you see, it is a good, diverse cross-section of all of those stakeholders that were involved. So why are we here? Well, as Chief Banta did mention, you all contracted with us earlier this year, and we kicked off the project in May, to take a look at your public safety communications as a whole. And that means both Marion County Public Safety Communications PSAP and Ocala PD. When we went about doing this project, we also, when we look at the scope of work, we were also encouraged in the kickoff to understand that you all kind of subscribe to the same concept that we do at Mission Critical Partners, which is truth over harmony. So when we it was emphasized to us that is the approach that you all wanted to take as well, and take a look, so to speak, behind the curtain, not just of the individual PSAPs, but how do they function within Marion County, and how can you best improve public safety as a whole. And that's what we did. And this is the results of that. So I mentioned about defining success, and as you can see from this slide, we probably had about 20 people in the room at the kickoff, and we had about 20 different definitions of success and what that means. As we take all of this and put it together, typically what we find is that a definition of success can boil down to what we call a higher purpose statement, and that brings people together and lets them actually let go of some of the challenges that they may have. And that higher purpose statement is that at the end of the day, no matter what entity you work for, no matter who you are, that the goal is to have every firefighter, police officer, EMT, go home and have another day with their family, including the citizens that call for assistance. And regardless of what the undercurrents are and the politics, but at the end of the day, that's what everybody in this county wants to achieve. So how did we go about it? Well, we had 4 tasks presented in our scope of work. Of course, we do the project kickoff, and that's where I said we had the discussions about the definitions of success. We also had some discussion about expectations in general, and that's where I mentioned about the truth over harmony, that we know that these projects are not easy. They are very sensitive in nature. And everybody wants to agree that, again, truth over harmony is a good thing until we start asking questions, until we start seeking answers and clarity, trying to separate perception and narratives from facts. And that can get very uncomfortable, and we know that. And then when you put it in writing, that becomes a whole different ballgame. So with that, as we collect the data, go from the kickoff into data collection and having these intimate discussions, and then analyzing that data against standards and best practices. And then on the final report delivery, as we bring that all together, we then provide an opportunity of a review of the draft report. And through that, how we do that is we provide stakeholder review worksheets, and we break down the report section by section. And we provide the opportunity for those reviewers, and those reviewers were the public safety team, the members of the project core team. And then they have the opportunity to reply to each section, any discrepancies, any inaccuracies. As I mentioned, this is a very large report. It's 154 pages long. And so it's very important that we correct any inaccuracies and the things that we may hear. And then there are just going to be some opportunities where our experience does not afford for us to make a change to the report, because it may impact the integrity or the outcome of the report. So there's a little bit of give and take there. And then that we take all of that back, we put that into the final report, and then present that all to you. So it is quite a extensive, encompassing, collaborative process. So those interviews that we talked about, we were on site for 3 consecutive days. Following that on-site, we continued with a whole bunch of other interviews that were requested and another on-site for a total of 23 individual interviews. As the leadership at the PSC and OPD will attest to, we asked for a lot of documents, and we provided them with an upload link to provide those, and we combed through those. We had discussions with administration. I've had several discussions with the county administrator as well as the city manager. And then, again, we mentioned about data collection. Our operational observations, we did spend some time in both PSAPs, talking with people and also looking at the facilities themselves. And then, of course, looking at the data analysis. What we did with a lot of that is we put that into our, what we call MAPS, our Model for Advancing Public Safety. And this is something that we've been introducing to the industry for about the last year, and it provides a snapshot in time. And that's what this report is, and we would ask you to remember, it is a snapshot in time. We know very clearly that both centers and leadership have been taking what we have been talking about in our bi-weekly project status calls and actually starting to make some implementations of things that they've heard that we would be coming up with as recommendations. And that is typically does happen. So our project focus areas were these 7: organizational structure and operational configuration, personnel and workforce management, and so on there. I won't read through all of them. Each of these do correlate to a section in the report. Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Manley, on the biweekly status calls, can you tell us who participated in those calls?
That was typically the project core team, the PST, or public safety team.
So out of the 20 people that were listed, a majority of them, or?
I would say yes. We would always have what you would consider, I guess, a quorum, if you were to say.
The project core team, those that
Correct.
are listed as the project core team were on those biweekly status calls?
Correct, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So this is a holistic summary. You'll see this in section 9 of the report. Nope, my animation did not work. So what I'd actually like you to focus on this slide is the 2 on the bookends, if you will, the left and the right. That is what we call our MAPS ratings, and they correlate to the 7 areas that we looked at. What is of note, again, is the PSC and the city of Ocala, what we look to aim for is anything in the green. That is what we would look at as industry standard. And just to kind of summarize what we found, as the individual PSAPs functioning on their own in their own operations are doing quite well. What we found as we started looking is the challenges are in what we say that middleware, the governance. And I'm not talking management and operations. I'm talking that higher level of governance where you are setting the vision and the direction and that type of thing. So we're going to go into that a lot more, but as you can see, you start getting pinch points in that diagram when you look at the governance rather than at the individual centers. But what we like to do, again, is look at what are these risks and how do we turn them into opportunities? How do we bring everything up from looking at the past and bring it into the future? What we have the opportunity to do. And again, just as a summary, as you know, in the report, we provided a bunch of priority 1 recommendations. And this is how we see the future in as little as 6 months of that middleware piece in Marion County Public Safety Communications as a whole, if you were to implement those priority 1 recommendations. And why do you not see technology and staffing? Well, those are probably longer term initiatives. They take a little longer to right the ship and to bring the staffing up and to improve technology. So in areas like training, performance management, some of these are still supported by the individual operational work of the individual PSAPs. But when you look at organizational structure, quality assurance, leadership and planning, those are the areas that you see that can really be improved by what we're saying are priority 1 recommendations, which means within 6 months, the short-term recommendations. So if we're ready, we can just dive into some of these sections of the report and the key takeaways. This is what we looked at when we looked at organizational structure and operational configuration. Those are 3 bullets there are some of the things that we considered, and I know you do have the presentation in front of you. Of the takeaways, the 3 here, which are highlighted with blue, are the ones that we primarily, I want to bring forth, and those are ones that we related to our priority 1s. There's a lot of cooperative relationships, but they're mostly informal. Supervisory span of control at both PSAPs is pretty good. There's just a couple of little tweaks that could take place. And of course, as we know, through the city council, Ocala Fire Rescue announced that they want to terminate its agreement with the PSC and return to OPD. That just indicates to us that there are some sort of issues, underlying things going on there with possibly the operational configuration. So our priority 1 recommendations in this area relate to creating some interagency working groups to improve the communications between the 2 centers. They are sister centers. The calls for fire rescue come into OPD, and those calls are handled by the OPD call takers in its entirety. The caller doesn't get transferred. Only the data that goes into what they call CAD, the computer-aided dispatch, that call gets transferred electronically to PSC, and then they dispatch fire rescue. So there is a bond, a relationship. We would say, rather than these being 2 individual PSAPs, that they are sister PSAPs, and that you have a regional public safety communications configuration.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Bryant.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so on that subject, I mean, and you might be covering this later on in your presentation, but I understand your pros and the cons for having 2 separate PSAPs locations. But as I thought through this over the course of time and reading through this, would it be to the advantage of Marion County and its citizens, and knowing the growth that's coming our way, to try to coordinate to where, while we would have 2 separate locations for PSAPs, but maybe in the call-taking aspect, that it was all within one? I mean, I know that I was told that there is, I think it's one of the counties in South Florida that has more of a regional. And there's several different locations, and the calls are queued to different locations by how they come in. And
So-
it's not necessarily a jurisdictional boundary that sets where those calls go.
Correct, and I believe you're probably talking about Broward County. They have 3 regional PSAPs, and through an automatic call distribution, as that call comes in, it goes to whichever PSAP can, has the next available call taker. They did not start out that way. It was a progression and an evolution to that. And it doesn't come without its, I don't want to say risks, but it does take time to evolve to something like that, which could definitely be a possibility. But there are challenges that would have to be vetted out, yes. But that model is in place in other places.
Okay, I understand there's challenges that would have to be vetted out. My question is that a positive, is it a lateral move, or would it be a positive move, and would it be something that would, over the
Enhance
future,
the
that would
service.
enhance our service over the course of the next 10 years?
I'm not trying to dodge your question.
Fine.
But there are so many other things right now that's probably not where we would recommend you put your focus. I think that is a discussion to have down the road.
Right.
But taking this up to the governance level and the other things that we found would probably help you make that decision down the road.
Long-range planning.
Yes, long-range planning, but other things that need to take place before you will have the structure in place that could even support that conversation.
Okay.
Okay, cool, thank you. So again, going back to this, the couple of the other priority ones here, formalizing this cooperative relationships. Again, we noticed that there was a lot of more informal handshakes, informal stuff, rather than formalizing, so that everybody understands the expectations, and then the performance metrics and what can be able to be held accountable. And then the PSAP directors and managers, having them meet monthly, coming together. We heard that they used to, and then they don't. And again, this is one of these narratives where you've got people disputing that, oh, well, no, that's not happening, and yes, it is. And there's no documentation to say it is or it isn't. But this is one of the things that we would recommend, having them come together, start having a conversation. Under personnel and workforce management, again, we were looking at the full-time equivalents. This is probably, when it comes to the workforce, the staffing numbers, one of the most controversial, because when we come up with staffing numbers, we're looking at what it would take to eliminate overtime, have every call answered in less than the 90-10 rule, which is 90% answered within 10 seconds, means that everybody can take their vacation that they're allotted. All of these things, though, do impact a workforce and ultimately retention. And PSC had decent retention. All of a sudden, I cannot recall the number, but it was still could be improved upon. I know you guys approved 9 additional positions, but there are more that could be warranted in the future, depending on the configuration, to improve those numbers. I do understand from Chief Damien, who I know is here, that over the last, 3 or 4 weeks, I think it is, you have now met the 90-10 in the PSC, which is fantastic progress, and they should be commended for that. And there's still work to go to make sure that that's consistent. Some of the key takeaways there, this all starts leaning into some of our recommendations. They've had at least 4 changes in management and structure in the last 7 years. Could you imagine having a new boss every year and a half? Things tend to fall through the cracks, not due to anybody's lack of attention to detail or to lay blame or point fingers. That's just a hard environment to work under. And so that lack of consistency there has probably been very challenging, not only for the leadership and the management, but for those that are required to be doing the job. As I mentioned, they're working diligently at both centers to make improvements. We foresee a lot of the things that we're already recommending being worked on already, so there's some low-hanging fruit, so to speak. Adjustments in salary, this can be a challenge between the two centers. And by coming together with some of these subcommittees and these groups and these are priority 1 and priority 2 recommendations, trying to level some of these things out between the two sister centers so that both can improve their staffing and their performance management. The sheriff did provide a compensation plan. I know he presented it to the board here. There's some real potential, I think, that the office of the sheriff, the sheriff's ideas could be implemented. We don't see them as being office specific. So there is a compensation plan that could probably be implemented under any of the management models. And then both PSAPs, as I mentioned, are considered understaffed, even with the additional FTEs or full-time equivalents. Our recommendations, updating, the first one here is a priority 1, but it's only here as a priority 1 because it's part of a larger recommendation, which is to update the interlocal agreement, and we'll get into that in a little bit. We do recommend, as a priority 2, conducting a compensation study at the PSC, reviewing an alignment of hiring policies across both PSAPs, across both cities. That was brought up of differences even in past leadership within the PSC. Can they have tattoos? Can they not have tattoos? Those kind of things do impact your workforce and your ability to recruit and hire. And if they change midstream, all of a sudden somebody doesn't qualify, it can cause all kinds of animosities and issues. And then developing and formalizing a documented practice of sending new hires to PSC and OPD. Have them sit with each other for a while in a formal program, not maybe a short 30-minute visit or something like that, but actually have it integrated so that they all know what the expectations and policies and procedures and things are, and they can work better together. Performance management, this was a closer look at call statistics, agencies' use of analytics, and then quality assurance and degree of formalization in complaint resolution workflow. One of the challenges we had was getting consistent data. We'd get data one place, we'd ask to have it validated, and we'd say, oh, no, that's not the right numbers. So we did have a challenge, and you'll see in the report there are some footnotes here of why we chose a number that we chose. Some of the key takeaways here, and this is also where we looked at the complaints. You will notice we did not point any fingers or lay any blame in the complaints. That was, if we would have gone into more forensics, that would have been additional scope of work for us. But because as we learned about how the call flow actually works and realizing that these are sister centers and the calls are jointly handled, we kept it at a higher level and categorized, and then chose with our experience to focus on the fact that there is not a formalized complaint resolution workflow. It's done through email, it's done through phone calls, and there's not, we could find a joint complaint resolution workflow. Rather, it was, you're wrong, we're not getting an answer, you're not getting an answer. And this is not to any entity in particular. But a formalized complaint workflow was definitely lacking. And then there's an opportunity here that exists again for the QA/QI workflow, or quality assurance, quality improvement workflow. You all use all the protocols: emergency medical dispatch, emergency fire dispatch, emergency police dispatch, EMD, EPD, EFD. And there are different ways to go about reviewing those. But we found that on some critical incidents, there was not a joint coming together to discuss those incidents, or that they did not go out for QA/QI to either OPD uses something they call national queue. Theirs all go out to be reviewed. And PSC uses an trained internal review. But we were finding that nobody was coming together to review on a regular basis. Again, sister agencies, they all contribute to each other's calls and that workflow. So that was another thing that we took, which that relates to the second page of this. But here is where we found, this is the first introduction to our recommendation of overhauling the interlocal agreement. Interlocal agreement was created, and as you all know, in 2012. It included a lot of information about how the transition was supposed to take place for the consolidation, and it's outdated. 7 years later, y'all know a lot about what you didn't know back then, and it really needs to be updated. We cannot stress enough the addition of performance metrics, and we've detailed them out there, the scope of services, even the different committees and subcommittees, whether standing or ad hoc, that we're all tying into here. This is probably the most crucial thing you all could do right here. And then the interagency working groups, establishing a complaint management system and the complaint resolution system. This requesting QA on all critical incidents. These are just the things that I've already mentioned previously. Set agendas to make sure that these complaints and these committees have an opportunity to report out on their progress, on their initiatives, their action plans, and their progress. And then educate all the stakeholders on the content of the ILA. This is something that fell through the cracks. There are opportunities in there that says that reports are supposed to be provided on a quarterly basis or an annual basis, which we could not find evidence of that they were being done. Again, that's one of those unintentional things that can fall through the cracks. Facilities and technology. This one we weren't finding, the facilities-wise, we found that the PSC and OPD, the rooms are large, they're modern. PSC was just going through an upgrade, renovation. OPD has space to expand their operations if they were to need to. We did want to mention one of the, and I know Chief Damien, this is one of the things that was pointed out too, was that the exterior entrance to the building that houses the PSAP and the EOC, it's not access controlled. That's just from a facilities, a security thing there that could be improved upon. But the facilities themselves, you guys very much commended both at the PSC and OPD for very modern facilities. One thing that, and then a couple of no priority ones here, just the priority twos, requiring maybe having a COOP plan and figuring out actually how the PSC and OPD communications will operate at the backup site if that were to ever become necessary. If you were to have full activations over there with both sides, and those in emergency management know that you actually usually need more staff in an emergency than less, but yet we tend to reduce the number of seats in our backups. Not that that's the case here, but to be able to have full complements of both OPD and PSC in there, just to make sure exactly how that would work and lay out. As far as technology, for the most part, technology really boiled down to one issue, and that's the CAD-to-CAD interface. I don't know that I need to say a lot about that. I think it's a very well-known issue. But I also understand that, and this is why we keep saying this was a snapshot in time, that this report has been a catalyst for renewed commitment to getting that fixed. Now, that's a great thing. There's still progress that needs to be made, but I understand also that there was conversation jointly to be able to go out for an RFI, request for information, on potentially a single CAD platform, which I think we would still recommend you do that. There's been amazing advances in the CAD industry, even to cloud-based CADs as well, and RMS, records management system. Sorry, I'm throwing acronyms at you. But there's been a lot of progress in the industry in the last 3 or 4 years, and it would really be highly recommended that you continue down that path to see what you can find. And again, these beyond the CAD-to-CAD interface, which we understand, even assessing alternative solutions to resolve the data translation interface problems, we understand that there's been significant progress in there at that area as well, an agreement between the two PSAPs to come together and have a common translation language. So again, there's progress. Yes, ma'am.
So just for immediate fix, with the two separate CADs, if they were using a code a likewise code for each location, that would be something that could be accomplished?
Yes, what they're doing here with this alternative solutions to resolving the data and translations, using those common codes will help, along with having, common training, these other subgroups that can come together to understand, well, what does this mean to OPD call takers? What does this mean to PSC call takers? Making sure, essentially, they're talking the same language, not just the technology.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Then we go into funding and cost sharing. This is another area where we found significant challenges, which is an area of, again, the ILA that was being impacted. There was not clear articulation. We talked to budget staff, finance staff, and we had challenge finding what is exactly the formula? What are they measuring? And then having that being, again, the accountability into the ILA of how that is going to transpire and be reflected out to the member entities. And that is a little different for when you're a county member entity, such as the sheriff's office or county fire rescue, versus a member agency like Ocala Fire Rescue or Denellen or Bellevue. And then we did have several key takeaways in this area. Again, just from the estimated costs that it would, for OFR to remain with the PSC or go back to OPD. Of course, there are some one-time, project costs in there besides the annual. The lack of clarity as to what the county's cost-sharing formula is. Again, back to the ILA. Some positive key takeaways here that, leveraging the technology, leveraging your office, your 911 coordinator and the work there. They have common call handling equipment, those kind of things. Anywhere consolidations don't have to be virtual or don't have to be physical consolidations anymore. The leveraging of the technology can bring that together to have this regional approach as well. But the fact that we did find that that was lacking. So as you see, the first recommendation here again is back to the overhaul of the ILA and clearly articulate that. Bring a group together to have that cost-sharing formula discussion and what exactly it is, so it is clear. Follow the requirements for presenting the updated budgets. We even would recommend that they not be updated annually, the cost-sharing budget figure. Do that 2 to 3 years. It adds a level of predictability to the member agencies so that they'll know what they're going to be paying. Adding language in there on the relief to member agencies if the budgetary process is not followed. For example, if the numbers are not provided, if the budgetary numbers are not provided by April 1st of the year, then the member agencies will pay the previous year's rates, something to that effect. Again, it gives everybody a little skin in the game to keep everybody accountable and moving forward. So that's just a couple of examples. Most of these do kind of relate to working out that cost-sharing formula and updating it appropriately in the ILA. Future projections, we were very light in this area because, again, there's so many decisions and so many other things that need to take place from our perspective before a lot of these future things can, long-term planning, take hold or would even have a chance probably to survive. But looking at these long-range plans, and this is a recommendation that we had that does not reflect it up on here, and that is to have a strategic plan at the administrative board level. Again, it binds the two to work together start rowing, so to speak, in the same direction and know where they're headed as one and not as silos, while still obviously maintaining some of their autonomy. So this is transitioning now from the current state in the report to the, well, and I shouldn't say it is, this is still, well, This is more looking at future state. But we talked about the individual PSAPs. One of the things that we were asked to look at was originally deemed in or termed in the scope of work as governance structures. So I want to kind of level set here a little bit. And when we, as MCP, when we look at governance and management, they are two different things. Management is that day-to-day operations, your chain of command, those that are executing the day-to-day. Where governance, as I think I referenced earlier, is that middleware. They're setting the vision and the direction. They're making it possible for the management to do their job. So with that in place, what we looked at, the requests for the different management, who's the PSC go under? Who are the members? We look at that as management. And then operational is one PSAP or two PSAPs. So that's what this section turned out being. And then we dedicated another tire-in section to governance. So we looked at PSC as combined, no change in membership, status quo. Continuing the PSC is combined with the inclusion of OPD, so all for one, one for all. And then continuing to operate as a combined center with the deconsolidation, if you will, of OFR back over into OPD. We were asked very clearly in the very beginning not to provide recommendations in this regard in the report. It was agreed to in the kickoff and such. I know there's been conversation since then, whether we needed to kind of make a course direction. I have had, again, communication with the county administrator and the city manager. These are some of the things that we would ask that you all consider when you ultimately make a decision, the bullets up here, because each of these impact the other. You pull on one of these, you pull on the other. So really at the end of the day, what is the priority, or what is the balance between them when you may ultimately make a decision on this? For example, with duplication of efforts and costs for similar requirements and functions. So at each PSAP right now, you've got training, you've got quality assurance and those types of things. Well, if you were to bring everybody under one roof, you could eliminate some of that duplication of effort, but then you would pull on the geodiversity of the PSAPs that are enhancing continuity of operations and disaster recovery. Essentially, the way you have it now, because you have dynamic call routing, you essentially have a hot standby. If PSC ever has to book out to their backup, you have those calls rolling over to OPD right away, and you have local knowledge handling those calls. And it goes the other way as well. If OPD needs to book out, they have a hot standby. Are there other ways to decrease that duplication of effort? And I think we've made some of those suggestions through the different committees in the ILA. So the point being, if you tug on one of these, you tug on the other, and you need to understand what are your priorities as a group of what's in the best interest. These are basically, I say, whoever these report to, I call it geography, right? As far as management, none of these that we felt are the opportunity for any of our recommendations could happen under any one of them and be positive. But at the end of the day, you're going to have to fix the governance piece, or any of these, you'd find yourself in the same situation in 5 years.
So,
go ahead.
Sorry. So, Ms. Manning, I wasn't at the kickoff.
Sure.
My voice might have been different than what was relayed to you. So as a commissioner, though, sitting here listening to you and knowing that we're going to need to make some decisions, I am going to ask for your expertise as to what is your recommendation.
If I could have you hold that for a moment.
Absolutely, and you don't have to answer it now, but I would like to hear it before this time is completed.
And I'm very comfortable letting you know what that opinion is, but I would like to do that
absolutely
as we finish up here. Okay, great. So with management oversight, we did look at, and we were asked specifically to look at the Marion County Sheriff's Office as management oversight. We do have some concerns and I want to be super clear, this has nothing to do with the sheriff. It is the office of the sheriff or any office that is subject to the electoral cycle. Sheriff has some great ideas and has best intentions. So again, to be clear, nothing to do with the sheriff, office of the sheriff, or any other election cycle management oversight. So just to make sure we have that. When there's protections under and any kind of act that somebody cannot be terminated, that's great, but they can still be demoted. They can still be transferred. Those are challenges when you're looking at who should be managing. Those situations right now and we could have a different opinion 4 years from now. But right now, because of the turmoil and the constant, the rotation of the leadership changes every 4 years, those types of things, this could be just adding risk to the situation right now. Again, this is also a call for succession planning. There's a lot of informal meetings and handshake agreements, which is great. You guys have such a great foundation of your leadership, public safety leadership, working together, but it doesn't protect from the future. And that's what we're trying to talk about here, is how do you future-proof challenges with leadership? So the report goes into some more detail of the sheriff's recommendations, but again, we don't look at those as exclusive to the sheriff's office. Should you as a commission decide to, make a commitment to another entity within the county to run the PSC. The challenge, though, is this constant change. Same with the operational models. I think that we've talked about this quite a bit. The hot standby, the versus not. Call taking is centralized if you go under one roof, but again, there are other options in the future once you get some of these other core things, the foundational structure in place to be able to support those conversations. See if I make sure I didn't miss anything here. All right. So moving on from those, I think we kind of, I think you get the gist of what our recommendations may be there. Governance, so this was the big one. And you guys are not alone. I want to tell you that. This is very common. When we go into other organizations, they think, oh, well, it's these people's problems or it's this side's problems. But what they're missing is that those relationships that bind and how they are going to work together. And we know that that's a lot of that is human nature, and sometimes they need a catalyst to bring them together. And that's what we're trying to provide with you guys, as a path forward for that to occur. So with that, here are our key takeaways, but as you see here, they are all in blue. These are all important. And I don't want to belabor any of these. I think we've talked about them as we've gone through the presentation. Transparency and responsiveness, all of these things on this page really do relate to communicating and working together and putting that structure in place for that to happen.
It's kind of funny that we're in the business of communications and we're doing it so poorly.
Exactly.
That is a saying, a cliche, that there is no communications in communications. That has plagued our industry for probably, 51 years of 911, but, how to communicate. And if you see where we've come from that, if I'm saying 51 years of 911, you're talking about a phone call. And now the technology and the capabilities and the changes for the PSAPs of what they're going through. You're adding all of these operational changes as well as then all of the leadership changes on top. And it can be very challenging to retain, staff and find staff to do it and then retain them. Again, ILA number one. Then we're going to kind of delve into this one a little bit more. Determining the appropriate size memberships. Right now, you've got the, if you look at the administrative board, You've got county representation, city's representation, and sheriff's office representation. But there are other stakeholders involved. So what's the size of the membership board, or the membership? What is the size of the governance bodies? Are they scalable? Are they agile? So are they ad hoc or standing? Making sure the balance, membership representation is balanced.
Yeah, question?
Yes, Commissioner.
And since I'm holding a bunch of them until then.
Sure.
So after the administrative board, where does it go from there? What's your opinion of where it goes from there? So if the administrative board, which is composed of a representative from the county, the city, what happens then? Where do you think it goes from there to make a decision?
Well, to make a decision,
Yes.
so you're looking at an advisory, them being an advisory board or
It comes back to
administrative.
the Board of County Commissioners,
Right, and the city.
depending. Okay.
Yeah, it would go back to both of them. They would, well, it depends on how much you want to,
Depends on, actually, it kind of depends on how much it is, because if it's under the PSC, it's pretty much coming directly all to us, unless it's something that does with Ocala Police Departments. So it does come back to the board, so it is kind of a single, and I'm not saying anything against it right now, but I'm just saying it does come back to us as one group. So it isn't really completely shared.
Well, based on
Decision-making.
today's environment, but if
Yes.
an updated interlocal agreement were to be, which is gotta happen.
And-
I mean, we
No,
see
no,
that.
and I agree,
Yeah.
and I gotta say, and one of the outtakes that I'll bring that you just said here was, we're in such a good opportunity right now because I've been in public safety for 35 years, and I have never seen Ocala Police Department, the Sheriff's Office, Bellevue, Dunellen, PDs work together, and Marion County and Ocala Fire Rescue work together the way they do now. It has never happened. And at their level they're doing, and I mean, it's great, and we need to take advantage of that.
Absolutely.
And I believe it's our interlocal agreements that are gonna make that, but it's gotta be where everybody's gotta have a choice in it.
Sure.
And have a true say in it and everything, and I'll wait till we finish,
Okay.
but I'm just hit at that high point, and that's
Sure.
when you're bringing that up, it does come back before a decision's made, it comes back before the five of us when it happens with a
Right.
PSC.
but what could that look like in the future to the
Right.
betterment of the whole and working together? And that's an opportunity that is, to your point, that you will have to, hopefully that you move that forward, the recommendation that you'll have that opportunity to do that. Again, just set agendas, recording meetings instead of just taking minutes, so that those important nuances can be gone back to. Again, we have that advantage now in today's technology, which we didn't before. Lessons learned. The change management workflow, that's another one, introducing so much change. This is different, of course, in a complaint resolution workflow, but when a change is going to be made, whether that be technology or that be policy, how does that change get introduced? How does that recommendation get introduced? Who does it go to? Who researches it and analyzes it, and then makes a decision or a recommendation to which body to whether or not to move that forward? Right now, they seem to be happening just ad hoc, one center or the other center, again, not coming back to jointly, well, how does this impact us, and how does it impact us? What are those interrelationships? So we want to make sure that what we're doing is moving everybody in the right direction, not just one center or the other. Again, just some small things. Providing multiple means to participate in meetings. Does everybody have to be there in person? Can they dial in? Is there conference bridge? Is there WebEx? Is there opportunity to stream like you're doing here? And then improving the meeting frequency. This was another thing we weren't really. There was some conflicting information on this and how consistently the boards were meeting and the committees were meeting. But again, this is the opportunity to define in the ILA how often they will meet, and then holding them accountable for meeting at those times and reporting the outcomes of those meetings and having that information available. Rules of engagement, again, something that can be spelled out in Robert's Rules of Orders or anything like that. And how people are to engage and look, again, wear their big hat, looking at, the county public safety communications as a whole. committing to transparency and responsiveness. And then, and this one seems minor, but directors, especially of consolidated centers the size of the one here in Marion County, a lot of times they are considered executive leadership and involved in any of those types of things. I understand there is a breakfast that takes place, and having that PSC director represented there, especially if there was a move to move it out at some point in the future, out from the fire rescue, maybe back under county or wherever it goes, including them in those conversations. OPD is represented at there. The law enforcement is represented there, but when you get down to these communications again, they're kind of left off to the side to be able to have that commitment. And I understand Chief Banta's, they're now, participating in that, but again, span of control, that's a large operation. There needs to be the opportunity to address issues and concerns directly rather than anecdotally what turns out to be like the telephone game, right? You tell this person, they tell this person, and then it gets around to conversation, and it's now not even remotely what it started out as. All right. Summary, finally, yay. Probably longer than let's go back to this, turning risks into opportunities. We've hit you with a lot, but again, with those priority 1 recommendations, we can see you improving the organizational structure, operational configuration, leadership, and planning right off the bat with those kind of 2 little nagging longer term, ship course change down the road, technology and staffing taking a little longer to take place. But regardless again of the opportunity of the management structure and operational model, this is where we would recommend you all focus initially. Some of the little highlights and bubbles here that we pulled out: proper management's important. The personnel management, not a significant factor within the centers, but the relationship between. And again, it's not necessarily just coming from the management of the centers. I mean, we heard this in the interviews and the challenges. Requesting additional staff, as far as what that looks like in the future, that really is a phased approach being a best course of action if you choose to add more staff. Pop backup, we mentioned that, dynamic routing. We know that the CAD issue is there. And then, again, mentioning about these are things that we already talked about. But this is our last one, and here really is our, if you would want to say what we would wrap around a recommendation. And for those, I guess, in the audience that aren't seeing, the singular most highlighted issue that can positively impact the success of Marion County's regional approach is stabilizing PSC's management and improving the governance and its overall leadership activity. It's important to remember that true success in a consolidation effort only can be achieved when members establish trust, engage in constructive conflict, are committed to the success of the organization, hold each other accountable, and are focused on results.
Commissioner Gold.
I know she didn't give the answer. I know the direct answer.
I'll still give a direct answer.
Well, I got a few things saying it's going to take a few minutes on here. One is we got to remember why this came up was, first off, is Ocala Fire Department and Marion County Sheriff's Office had complaints that they didn't think they were being addressed by the previous management, and then they even so now that they thought there were some areas that came into it. So, that's the big thing, is the stakeholders didn't feel they were having their complaints addressed, and you went through that, and that comes back to governance board, I believe, where if we had a true governance board that we could do it. I do believe that we need to have my personal opinion is I do believe that we need to have the 2 separate communication centers, Ocala Police Department working the way they do. I haven't had a chance to actually speak to Chief Graham about the reasons behind it, but what I've heard is, he's gone through this before in an area where a city was devastated.
Yep.
And that's too much for us to risk here. We have actually we have the sheriff's office has their mobile command center as a backup if need be, but joining together. In the end, I mean, we just have to, as a board here and as a city council, have to realize that we shouldn't even have to be in this position right now. We should be able to come together and form some type of committee that has a true voting power. We do it with our TPO, our transportation. We do it in a smaller part, and where the model I was using from was the Sheriff's Office and Ocala Police Department have a drug task force. And it started in 2004, or in that area, 2003, 2004. And it works with a director that's picked by the stakeholders. And that's where it's going to be. Yes, some of the meetings that we've had haven't had full compliance. We haven't had full attendance at them. Sitting on the advisory board or the administrative board, I know it's been myself, Mary Rich, representative from the sheriff's office, Chief Graham, when Miss Rich hadn't been able to be there. And, it's been a small board, and at times there were some issues that we thought that weren't addressed by the previous management. But, I mean, I think it just comes back to us that we've got to try to find some way to build a cooperative effort. Whoever the money comes out of, whatever pocket it comes out of, that's fine, but we've got to figure out that, we've got a stakeholder. The sheriff's office has the most calls, according to your report. They run the most calls out of there, or have the most calls run from 911, and then county fire, and then Ocala Fire Department next. But we're all in this, and we got to work it out. I did like a couple concepts that you had from there. One was the hiring process. I know some of my staff is tired of hearing about it, but the top grading process, I actually went back and looked at, and I do see some issues that we have in doing that. And even from the previous director, we see where things could have been avoided on that. But we did the best that we could on there.
Absolutely.
And I'm just going to suggest that as the board here, that we all look at almost the way the TPO is run, of forming some type of board. And this is going to be a big endeavor, that we do that, because in the end, we're all voting, we're all meeting, and I think we got to meet once a month on the executive level of this.
At least
At least
initially.
for now, to make sure that it comes in. And even the part where you're saying with look at some of the challenges of call-ins and that, because, we had several that couldn't make it to the board meetings on the administrative side that I'm sure could have had a voice, but it's hard mostly with public safety to get a chief, the sheriff,
Absolutely.
fire chiefs and everything. But, I mean, maybe my answer is more roundabout, but, whoever's the pockets are coming out of, that's fine. We can figure that out administratively, but we got to come together as a board and make this one thing work. And like your report said, 2012, it was put together quick. And I know it's strange to hear a person in my position admit they were wrong about something, but I thought the sheriff didn't want to get rid of it in 2012, and I found out that the sheriff did want to get rid of it in 2012. So I do admit to being wrong on that. And maybe the sheriff at that time had a little bit of, sight, was able to see that this is going to be a costly endeavor in the future, mostly with the emergency dispatch and all the types of dispatch that we're going to now, standardized dispatching.
Well, it actually had to do with the recession that we were in and budgets. I mean,
And
that's
it
what
was,
it came
it
down
was
to.
costly, and I honestly really thought that the sheriff wanted to maintain it that time. So, but I was wrong about that. But, it was put together then. It was put together, seemed like it was kind of put together kind of fast, and it kept running. Maybe we never heard about because of the leadership issues in there at the time. And now it's come to a head, and I've got to thank the stakeholders for bringing it to our attention. With Ocala Fire Rescue, Ocala Police Department, they're not as much right in it, but, to come to us and say, hey, we've got a problem, we've got to fix it, or we're going to come out. I'd also like to hear from those stakeholders, if it's at least just briefly, if they want to. I'm not sure if they want to or not, but I think it would be just a good idea. But I think we need to salvage this and make it work best, so, You know, if somebody's got a complaint and they call in, they know it's handled. You know, I know myself, Commissioner Moore, several city council members all have also called 911 and had some negative responses or drop calls and things that shouldn't have. And, you know, we want to have that happen. When that happens, we want to be able to find out what the problem is and fix it. So
Great.
that's all I have.
I'm coming
at
your
this
way
point.
in just a moment, Commissioner Moore. Thank you, Commissioner Gold, for your thoughts, and we're going to give everybody an opportunity to share their thoughts here on the dais this morning. And I don't know how much of a decision we'll make, because I do think we need to be sitting with the city as we have these final discussions as to our future. But in the end, we'll hear your final comments as well. Commissioner Bryant?
Well, first of all, thank you for digging in and for the work that was done and for providing us with this wonderful
Paperweight.
reading when you can't sleep. No, just kidding. And your presentation this morning. I mean, I think that we've been able to get a lot of information out of this, and I think it was probably long overdue, which is on us. With that said, I think it's also very important to commend everyone so far that has worked so diligently to make the improvements and the progress that's been made since we started really having some of the issues that we were having. And I think it's also very important to commend them on the progress that they've made thus far in correcting any of the things that the low-hanging fruit that they could easily identify and easily come together, and that's through all the agencies to try to make changes to make the process flow better. You came out with some really great points. The one that I take away the most is making sure that we realize as a community and as our different law enforcement agencies and different fire rescue entities, and then our 2 call centers, you know, our two PSAPs, that getting rid of that us versus them mentality. I think that's going to be the number one thing that we have to do. And your word that you used, your wording regarding them looking at each other as sister agencies, I think is going to be very, very important moving forward. And there were a lot of recommendations that came out of the report that I think will make those relationships much better and make the workflow better as well. I just, from what you presented here this morning, obviously the ILA, that's number one. And I will say this commissioner will be committed to making sure that that is updated and thoroughly gone through, as I'm sure the rest of the board is as well. Commissioner Gold is right. We put this together in 2012. We haven't looked at it again since, and that's on us. We should have we should have looked at that within a couple of years. Something that, you know, probably should have been happening while you talked about the director of PSC attending the breakfast meetings, there probably should have been a director-to-director meeting going on.
Oh, absolutely.
Whether it was weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly. The 2 directors from the 2 different entities should be getting together, and they should be talking about anything that's going on.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, that was one of the recommendations with the 911 coordinator, the county coordinator, and the 2 directors getting together, finding their issues, determining their individual action plans even, yes.
The governance board, that governance board doesn't necessarily need to be us. It needs to be the people that are actually doing the work, that are there on a day-to-day basis, however we come up with how that structure should be. Because at the end of the day, if it's an operational issue, they are better suited to make those decisions. If it is a financing decision, then of course it would have to go before the respective boards. Technology. We just talked about the renewal of the sales tax this morning. I see an incredible opportunity for us to talk about the technology at both PSAPs for our next sales tax initiative, because that is going to be capital infrastructure that's going to be very, very important as we move forward into the future. There's a lot here. I'm not going to talk anymore, but there's a lot here, and I think that it's vital that we all come together, look at all of these recommendations, and that we continue being committed as we have been over the course of the last 5-6 months, whatever the time has been, to make sure both PSAPs are functioning at the highest level that they can, and that when a citizen picks up the phone to call 911, that they're able to get that service as quickly as they can, and that somebody can answer that phone and get the help that they need to them as quickly as they can.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner Bryant.
I will say that the sister agency term did come from the manager over at OPD.
Very good.
Just to give credit there.
Nice. Commissioner Moore.
Well, I agree on the governance thing. We do need to improve, and it's cooperation, not competition, because back when I came on the board was about 2012, November of 2012. Back at that time, the city and the county pretty much were us versus them. And then as far as this board and as far as city council, to their credit, we've got together and we became very cooperative, and we worked together for what's better for the citizens instead of us versus them, because our utility department used to have the us versus them. And then now they actually cooperate. We have all these other areas, and this is an area where there's better cooperation, I think, than when I first got on the board. And we have made progressive steps of improvement, and one of them was putting Chief Damien in there. To where he's at now, because when he had filled in, he turned around a lot of the situations that we were having before, got him corrected, but then, like you mentioned, the changes, then they moved to something, and now he's back where he needs to be. Just plugging Chief Damien, you're awesome. Because I hear compliments about you. Before you got back to where you're at now, I was hearing complaints. And I mean, I personally had a complaint in 2016 when I was the one laying on the ground and they messed it up. So I was personally, anyway, so we won't go back to that, but that was a different director. But we have taken steps to get it corrected, but the cooperation between the two needs to be fostered. The communication needs to be fostered between the two centers, because both of them have really awesome people working there, really great guys, and that's where we are working together, and we're making steps, we're making improvements. But then again, the governance piece, I think, is critical. And the other one would be on technology, back to Commissioner Bryant's point. But with cell phones, it rings 2 to 3 times on your cell phone before it's hit that either call center once. And call centers get unfairly blamed for something that's outside their control. And I don't know how we, at a local level, target that, but the cell phone companies themselves need to get better at, one, the GPS in there so they know where the call's coming from, but the other is getting that call to the call center quicker, so there's not that delay, because the person, it's rang 5 times and they hang up. Well, it's only rang like once in the call center, and they've hung up now, and now the call center is trying to call the person back, and it creates a problem. And then the other is sometimes when it rolls over from call center to call center, and then it didn't get hit at this call center. Well, this person, it's hit this other call center the first time, and they say, hey, it's rang 10 times on my cell phone. And it's really because the one call center was full, it rolled over, and it's only hit the other one time, and they're hanging up, and it's causing the issue. So I don't know what we can do on our side to improve any technology or something with the cell phone, or if it's the cell phone carriers that have to improve.
That's a complicated issue. There's a lot of things going on up at the FCC, requirements to carriers and deadlines. This is when we talked about all the advances in technology as far as CAD and things like that. There are new location accuracy, applications coming out or are out, but at the end of the day, a lot of it has to do with public education. And we do have a recommendation to more formalize and be more aggressive on your public education. I mean, we heard, anecdotally, and within the complaints of, complaints that, they don't know what jurisdiction they are in or who they're calling, so they're blaming, the public's blaming one or the other, not understanding how it works. And, public, again, these are not unusual issues that the industry is facing and public safety is facing. You have our private expectations and the applications and everything we use, the private industry now colliding with the public safety industry. And it used to be that the public's expectation of service, started out with, the location way back, when, but also then, it turned into, well, if you don't provide emergency medical dispatch instructions, you are opening yourself to risk. If you don't provide, all these different things, and now it's just gone back around. It's still a lot to do with location, but then we have texting and all of these things, and they're causing challenges for the centers and how they're going to accomplish them. And one of the ways to do that, again, is through strategic planning, through looking ahead, what's coming, and how do we prepare and how do we manage change, and for not just the technology, but for the people.
Just a question, because you mentioned like the federal communications. What can we do at a local level to try and facilitate them doing, because I mean, like the cell phone carriers probably could, it probably cost them some money, but probably could upgrade their things where they were better. But it seems like there's no motivation. And like one call I had where the cell phone dropped the call. I mean, it's a 911 call, somebody needs immediate help, and Republic Wireless dropped it. So later on, I dropped Republic Wireless. I'm no longer one. No, Republic Wireless is who I switched to.
Yeah.
It was
Price up, we'll
it was
have to
Boost
take it with
Mobile.
our
Yeah.
I mean, but can we do it on a state level, or does it be national level, or how do we get the cell phone carriers motivated to actually improve the technology? Because it's just not a county issue. It's every county in the state of Florida is going through this. Every
Yeah.
state's going through this. How do we motivate them to do what is right?
I think we know.
Well,
I think that is a larger
Voice.
conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, there are things, again, there are industry trends and knowledge that are, can improve that. And those are conversations I can gladly have with Chief Damien and OPD staff too, of what they're doing in that regard to improve that communication and the consistency of that communication.
Commissioner Zalek, did you have anything?
Actually, we'll just go back to your question first,
Okay.
and then, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind at all. Are you prepared to answer that question now? And
Hey, one real quick, I apologize. The whole thing, I gotta say, because, our dispatchers, our 911 takers are great, and I've had several of them save my life over the years, literally. I don't know if we're gonna hear from our stakeholders or not.
not today,
Why not?
because I think that we have a board meeting as well, but I think we do need to have a workshop on this.
I wouldn't mind hearing from, because the whole
Well,
thing
I
is.
think we need the city here too, Commissioner Gold, and we don't have representation, and they've not even had this presentation yet.
Okay, all right.
So, but
That's the wish
please-
of the board, so, but I think we gotta fix the complaint process. And I would hope our board would make sure that we understand that when one of these stakeholders come up and have a complaint, that it is handled. And, because the stakeholders, they don't have to stay in there.
Agreed.
We know that, the sheriff doesn't,
We have work to do.
Yeah.
I think
so-
we all recognize that.
As long as when they have a complaint, it needs to be handled. That's all I have to.
Okay.
So, with regards to a recommendation, again, looking to this statement that stabilizing the management and the operational structure, the recommendation really would be to take a pause. It's emotional. This is a lot to digest. Keep everybody where they are right now. Give OFR an opportunity, OPD an opportunity to, and the city and the county to manage these priority one recommendations and to set a path forward. That is not to say that everybody should keep in the back of their head the opportunity that, potentially OFR could still want to transition out. But take a pause, work on the governance, work on the priority ones, report, have metrics, report progress, make sure that there are those touch points, and give it 6 months, give it a year, which puts you right back here. Yes, I understand that. You also have the opportunity to, extend to fire rescue to make a decision later than today. Maybe you want to give them 6 months, but the recommendation would be, because there has been so much change and so much turnover, maintain where you are right now, organizationally, structurally. Put these priority 1 issues, or priority 1 recommendations into effect. Monitor the progress and make a more informed, probably less emotional decision 6 months, 12 months down the road. That would be our recommendation.
Thank you. And the wisest thing I think you've said is we should never be making decisions on emotions. And there's a lot of hot emotion with this, and rightly so, but we must be leaders here and take the opportunity to analyze this and work it through appropriately. Commissioner Zalek, I'm going to come back and make sure, is there anything else you'd like to add before I wrap?
Well, I appreciate your presentation today, and I look forward to our workshop. I think that's when we can get a little more clarity as we work with our partners. And just like any other relationship, it takes a lot of communication, and I think sometimes you've spoken about talking to each other in different languages, and when we do that, we're bound for inaccuracies and inefficiencies. And so I think if we can clean those things up, even if, as you said before, even if our technology lags behind in implementation for a certain amount of time, depending on funding and those things, if our leadership's communicating and the mid-level leadership's communicating, I think it's just upon us now, though, that we as leaders have, we knew there was a problem, we brought you in, and now it's time to solve problems. And that's what leadership should be about, right? It should be about sitting down with the city council, the mayor, and the team there, figuring out what the boundaries of that relationship and covenant need to be, and then holding our people accountable for that implementation and service to the people of Marion County and the city of Ocala. I don't think it has to be more complicated than that. And you're right, Commissioner, it's about, we sit together on the TPO board. There's no reason why it couldn't be the makeup of several commissioners, several city council folks, and several professionals that do it day in and day out, and then through that process having a complaint process where anybody can bring it, and we demand the fix and the understanding or the forensics behind why that problem occurred, and we are adamant and hold our people accountable for fixing those things. I think that's where we're at in this point in the relationship to make it better. And you're right. I think transition at this point would be way more harmful than good. I think that's what you're saying. Whether it's consolidating both of these things into one leadership style, it would be harmful. Whether taking it over to another agency in any aspect would be horrible. We have to do the hard work of building a relationship of trust, so that people know when they bring a complaint to us, it's going to get answered, and it's going to be, and it's not personal, but it's about serving the people of Marion County. And that, once that vision is established, I feel like we can get to it, and we can get over whatever the ego part of it is on either side, because as relationships break down, then it just becomes about attacking the person versus the issue. And we've lost sight of the issue, which is serving the people and making sure they get the 911 services, to trying to blame somebody else because we don't know what else to do. Happens in relationships all the time, right? So we appreciate your counsel and look forward to solving these issues.
Yes, Commissioner Bryant.
And I actually have one more quick question, because there was one thing that you said that I just want you to explain it to me a little bit better, and then I have one other thing to say. On the QA, you said one of the things that you saw was that OPD is using an outside agency. We've got an internal QA process, but then doesn't it go outside to the accreditation after that. So I'm just curious as to why that wouldn't, what's the difference?
Okay. And a great question, and it may be one that I have to seek additional information on.
Okay.
The subject matter expert that worked on that on our team used to do work for the National Queue, so has an inside understanding of how that works. And even when those, so what my understanding is what happens at OPD is that the calls that are handled that are used with protocols, the National Queue has an ability to go in and just take the calls that they want. Randomly, they just scrape the calls and they go through with their people and they look at everything and they rate everything, and that information is brought back. On the PSC, which again, it is an acceptable, completely acceptable method. They are ACE accredited. But they do put human factor into the situation. They're trained. Of course, it's nothing intentional.
Right.
It's just you are potentially putting that in there. And yes, they report a group of them. They provide that to the academy to show that they are pulling them. But my understanding is that those are not reviewed the same way. It is a reporting documentation mechanism rather than an actual full QA review of those 25 calls.
Okay.
Again, I want to set that if we need additional that, if I am speaking that in any way, I can have that answer in writing from our SME that wrote that section of the report.
Well, and my biggest question was, you said that because it's a third party, and in my mind, I'm thinking if ours are going off to the accreditation board.
Well, National Queue is part of the International Association of Emergency Dispatch.
Right, then that would be a third party as well. So I was just curious as to what the difference between the two was. And then last but not least, I mean, the one thing that I did not say is I'm pretty sure that everybody up here is also, I want all the stakeholders to know that, you know, this board, obviously by the actions that they've taken thus far, is committed to reestablishing the trust and making sure that, you know, our operation is successful.
First off, thank you for the time that you and your team spent in our county and talking to all of the stakeholders. And I want to thank the PSAs who have done a great job. Even the time that it began with all that they've had to work through, our call takers, and as we've gone through these steps of leadership, have done great with what they've had to work with. And it's incumbent upon us now to take better steps to improve what we have. And we have this comprehensive evaluation, and it does show that it's going to be best that we work with the city. Right now, it looks like the county owns it all. I don't want to own it all. I don't think that settles for a great partnership. Everybody must have a seat at the table, and we must be working it that way. Even though we had governance processes in place, we didn't follow that. We need accountability of all members working with those governances appropriately. And I think it's best shared by all parties. And I'm talking to my fellow commissioners, and I think having the workshop with all of us sitting down, and not just with the city, but including, I think the sheriff needs to be there and OPD. And if we decide, you know, I know Bellevue and Dunellen, I think they operate underneath the sheriff, but at some point we need to determine at what point do we give them a vote, but there does need to be a community effort of all of us. So Commissioner Gold, please, I hope you're not offended that I'm not calling anyone else for participation in our conversation, but I do think that we have an opportunity for all of us to talk about this at a better setting than what we have today.
I respect the board's opinion that, for today.
Thank
I
you.
just want to make sure that they do get a chance during our workshop to speak.
Well, absolutely, and I think that would be most appropriate when everyone has had the presentation as well, so that we're all coming from the same position. So with that, I'm going to ask that we get that workshop established with the agreement of the board, and that we have some conversations to get us up to that point. Mr. Boyones, are you clear with that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, very good. Is there anything you'd like to leave in parting with us?
Well, I would just like to say, again, as you said, thank you to everybody that on City of Ocala, or in Marion County, that has contributed and allowed us to dig in and get intimate and understanding, and we appreciate all of that. It's not easy, again, as we've said, and we, MCP, we really appreciate the opportunity you've afforded us to be your partner in what we see as the beginning of a journey. And we are here to support that journey in any way that you may, need to seek it from us. We always, we consider you part of the MCP family. If there are questions, phone calls, we are here to have discussions and help clarify. So again, thank you to everybody, PSC, OPD, all the agencies, all those that we interviewed, and we thank you.
Well, again, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you along the journey.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Yes.
Madam Chair, one thing I would like to mention.
Yes.
All the stakeholders are going to hear the same presentation today.
Yes.
And she will be at City Council tonight at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I'm not sure exactly when she is scheduled.
Right.
I would offer, after today, that probably the chairman, City Council President, City Manager, and myself, we get together quickly and have a quick conversation and talk about the upcoming workshop, if everybody is on board, and probably include the sheriff too in that conversation, so we can bring everybody together and plan what we want to do next.
I think that's,
And then bring it back to the board to schedule.
I think that's appropriate. Yeah.
Although unless I'm mistaken, I think the mayor and OPD, right? I mean,
There-
I would
Oh.
just be careful not to make sure that the mayor and maybe the president are.
I think also the fire chiefs as well.
Yes.
Yeah. We'll put those heads at this meeting to get the workshop established. That will be the planning, and then we'll come back with the workshop.
We'll include everybody mentioned.
Okay?
All right.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break, recess, and then we'll come back together, and we'll say at 11.
Yeah.
Give everybody a second to get back up here.
Frustrating.
Yeah.
This thing just occurred about 2 days ago.
The one on the slope?
This is the 10-second warning.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
I know, and
All
it's
right, Don,
great to
good to see
have
you.
so many
Nice
people to
seeing you,
come and
Don. Take
visit
care.
with us.
Mike Savage there.
I don't know what camera that is. Or maybe that's.
Oh, wow. Tops of our heads.
Little
It's a good camera. What I did like, well, it's only on that one, but.
Just widescreen.
Yeah.
I do want to call this meeting back together, and I want to thank everyone in the audience who has been so patient with us this morning as we've gone through this presentation. Normally, we do not have such a long presentation at the beginning of our meetings, but again, thank you so much for your patience, and we'll now get back to our agenda, which is going to take us to public comments. And we did not have anyone signed up in advance. That was an approval only. We did not have anyone signed up in advance, but I know there's probably people in the audience. If you've come today to talk to the board, I invite you to come forward now. There are two podiums. I have Mr. Munoz at one. When you come forward, if you'll please give your name and address for the record. Mr. Munoz, welcome.
Morning. Henry Munoz, 495 Marion Oaks Boulevard. I just had a question about 7A4. What's happening here? We're trying to get an airport or something, or I'm sorry, Mr. Sheehy left, so he couldn't get the hot seat now.
We'll get that answer for you.
That was money.
Yeah, go ahead.
That was money with there was a study that was supposed to be done between Alachua County and Marion County about regional airport. That money was asked by the county administrator to be moved back because the CEP wants to study bringing some opportunities to the Ocala National Airport.
Oh, okay. So I don't have to go to Orlando anymore?
That would be Monir's goal.
That's not only Monir's
See
goal.
if he can deliver.
Thank you for the great
Easy pass.
question. And let's hope the answer and the solution would be so easy. Do we have anyone else who has an agenda-related item that you'd like to come forward on? Seeing none, we will close public comment, and that will take us to item 3. We've got two sets of minutes. Got a motion by Commissioner Moore to approve and a second by Commissioner Gold. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Constitutional officers, that's going to take us to 2 items. I don't believe either of them are here. Commissioners, have you had a chance to look at both of those?
Yes, ma'am.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bryant, second by Commissioner Moore to approve items 4A and 4B, which 4A, Billy M. Smith, Marion County Property Appraiser, request for approval to extend the 2019 tax rolls, as well as 4B, George Albright, Marion County Tax Collector, request approval of the 5th lease renewal agreement with Jasmine Square, Inc. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. That'll take us to Clerk of the Court, and we'll turn it over to Ms. Debbie.
Good morning. On behalf of Clerk Elsperman, I'd like to present a request for approval of the budget amendment resolutions 5A1 through 5A11 as presented on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Bryant to approve 5A1 through 5A11. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. 5A2 is a good story. And I do believe, worth mentioning, $580,000 is coming back. The project reimbursement is 100% for, this is when we had shelters, our emergency shelters with the school system. So that's good news that those monies are approved and on their way back to Marion County. 5B.
is a request for approval of the letter of agreement on behalf of the Heart of Florida with the Agency for Healthcare Administration in support of the low-income pool program.
Commissioners, have you had a chance to look at that, and can we get an approval?
Yes, ma'am. Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Gold, seconded by Commissioner Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
And 5C is a request for adoption of the capital improvement program for fiscal years 1920 through 23-24.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Gold, to approve the adoption of the capital improvement plan for years 2019 through 2024. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. That's going to take us to the consent agenda. So I will start with Commissioner Zalek. Do you have anything to pull?
No, ma'am, I'm good.
Commissioner Moore?
I'll just say on 7J5, I'm not pulling it, but do the air conditioning right at that particular building, because in about a year and a half, that's where I'm going to be at. So anyway, Lord willing, I'll be there. But anyway, nothing to pull.
Thank you. Commissioner Gold? Commissioner Bryant? Okay.
Commissioner,
Yes.
just for the record, you have a revised 7G1. In the original action, we asked for a resolution to be approved. There is no resolution attached, and there is not a need for a resolution. So you have a revised action item on that, with that item.
Need to pull it.
Okay. So we'll pull 7G1.
Okay.
And 7D. I
Okay.
just want to ask a couple questions.
So Commissioner Bryant pulling 7D, and is it just one 7D?
Yeah.
Okay, 71?
71, thank you.
71, as well as 7G1. Thank you. And I'm just looking, well, I'll highlight something at the end of the meeting. So 71 being pulled and 7G1, Commissioner Bryant, we take both of those? Okay, very good. That being said, can we get a motion to approve the remainder
So
of
moved.
the consent?
Second.
We've got a motion to approve by Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Gold, for the remainder of the consent with the exception of 7D1 and 7G1. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Commissioner Bryant. 7D1?
Yeah, if Cheryl can just come up and talk about this a little bit.
Sure.
Public's
Absolutely.
interest.
Yeah, so Cheryl Martin, Community Services Director. So 71, if you remember back when we did a workshop last year, I received board consensus to help improve the capacity of our Housing Finance Authority of Marion County. And so they applied for some home funds to purchase a duplex. We've also, it's been approved there, so this duplex will be purchased with home funds to house low-income families, and they will manage that unit and keep it affordable for a minimum of 15 years.
Okay. So they use the home funds to purchase the unit, and then the rents go back to
The Housing Finance Authority.
Housing Finance Authority, and then they're used to
Maintain the property, keep the properties up and going. They just hired a director for their board, and that director will oversee all these properties.
I have a question. So all the rents that are collected, they're not subject to just that address. They can be used across the board for all the properties that are managed?
So it depends on the grant. So home has their rent limits and the rent limits are revised every year by HUD, and they can't exceed those limits. So it's typically based on unit size. So a 2-bedroom apartment or a 3-bedroom apartment will have a different rate. In addition, the rents can't exceed 30% of the family's income.
So my question actually, to define that a little better, the property rents that are collected, the pool of funds can then be used for all the properties that are being managed, or is that still subject to the grant?
That's subject to the grant.
Okay,
Yes.
very good. Thank you for the clarity.
Yeah, and those rents collected, again, are to be held to maintain those properties. And typically the rents are so low that yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Do you have any idea what the rents are, Cheryl?
I don't, but I can get that to you. They typically don't exceed 650, 700. Again, it's based on unit size, so I can email you the rent unit price.
Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Does that answer all your questions? Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Bryant with a second by Commissioner Moore to approve 7D1. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. 7G1, approval of the modification to the Transportation Planning Organization Director Contract.
As revised.
As revised.
So moved.
Got a motion by Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Zalek. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That motion, any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. That will take us to Mr. Mentor. I know it says nothing, but I'm giving you an opportunity. You have anything?
Everything I had was on the consent agenda, Madam Chairman, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mentor. Mr. Boyonis.
Well, the first thing, Commissioner, it's not listed, but I would like to bring forward item 13A1 and introduce Kelly Hart to you. She has been selected to be our next Public Relation Director, and she's starting, I believe, the end of this month.
September 30th, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. And now is the opportunity to ask her any hard questions you may have.
Well, we welcome you, and for the record, if you could go ahead and just state your name and address, just for the clerk's sake.
Yes, ma'am. It's Kelly Hart, 2303 Southeast 20th Circle, Ocala.
Welcome, Ms. Hart. We are pleased to welcome you to the Marion County family, most especially as our Public Relations Officer, Information Officer, and give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to us.
Okay. I am from Ocala, so I was born here. I'm very familiar with Ocala and Marion County. I come to you from the city of Ocala, so I'm happy to now be moving over to the Marion County family. And my background is in media and public relations, communications, and advertising, so I feel I have a big pool of wealth and expertise that I can bring to the county. So I look forward to getting started soon, and thank each and every one of you for selecting me for this position, and I'm just very excited and very grateful for the opportunity.
Great. Yes, Commissioner
Just want to say
Moore?
one thing. She actually knew the county commissioners because she is raised from around here. She already knows us, and she took the job anyway, so she's got backbone. So,
I'm sorry.
Yes, Commissioner
I have
Zalek.
had the fortune in the community. Kelly has been around in the community and always done volunteer projects and all kinds of things that have been close to her heart. And so it's great to have you on board. The professionalism that you'll bring, the skill that you'll bring to the job, I'm excited about because I've gotten to work with you on a few other projects and they have all been outstanding. Everything from even allowing Ocala, Marion County to be part of the Ocala Mag and Family Times and all the things that you do. So, man, I'm excited about the opportunity to continue to have our public information and get more information out to the people that we serve. So,
Thank you.
I don't think I can say much more than has already been set up here. We're all excited to have you on board. Welcome to the family.
Thank you.
Very
You
good.
guys,
Well,
thank you very
Thank you
much.
for joining us today, and your official start date is September 30th?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you then.
Okay.
yeah, I just want to point
The
out.
opportunity to put Kelly on the hot seat. For
No, I just want to point out, hey, to the city of Ocala that always ribs me when they take one of our employees, we got one of yours. Anyway, back to cooperation, not competition.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kelly. Item 9B, Commissioner, is a request for denial of release of lien, and I believe Mr. William Smith is in the audience, okay? And they would like to present their case.
Very good. If you'd like to come forward. And thank you again for your patience this morning as we went through the earlier presentation. If you'll just give your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Christine Williams Smith. My address is 11524 Northwest 13th Street, Ocala 34482.
Would you like to, a little bit of background? This is a code enforcement
Oh, yes,
lien.
right. I bought this piece of land from the county, and I wanted to put the electricity on, and they said the county have a lien on it. So,
Okay. Can you pull that microphone down just a little bit? There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. When I bought this piece of land from the county, and when I went to put the electricity on, they said the county have a lien on it, and they can't put the light on unless I go to the county. When I go to the county, they said they paid somebody to clean up the property, so the lien, that's why the lien is on it. But when I bought the property, it was a mess, and I cleaned it up myself, me and my husband.
So whenever you bought the property, did you?
I didn't know. For where I'm from in Jamaica, we don't, and I didn't tell my husband because he's American. But I didn't tell him that I was buying the property, because if I did tell him, he would tell me, "Don't buy it." But I didn't tell him until after he said, "Are you an idiot? Why did you buy this property with a lien on it?" I said, "I didn't know." So I can't do nothing. It's just sit there. I'm just cleaning it up every day, just keep cleaning it up. That's all I do. I can't do nothing with the lien on it because I can't get the light to do nothing on it. I'm just asking if you can take the lien off, or you can reduce the lien, or do the best you can for me.
Okay. So the amount of the lien is $9,102.96. No, that's what you paid. Excuse me. The amount
But
of
I
the
paid.
lien is $5,061.02. So you say you had to clean that property up.
Yes, I have pictures here that I take all the junk that was on the property.
So we did some cleanup on that property.
Yes, I have it
previously.
also. Yeah.
So we have some cost associated with that.
Yes.
As well.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner.
What are, somebody's going to have to come up.
Sam.
Tell us
Sam
what
is-
our, Sam, what's our hard costs?
Yeah. Ms. Smith, if you'll just let him share that podium with you.
Yes, ma'am. Sam Martsoff, Marion County Growth Services Director. Good morning. This is there are actually two liens. They were associated with the same junk, accumulation of junk that was on the property way back in 2016. So we abated it. The code board lien maxed out at $3,000. Then we went in and abated the junk for $1,300. They got it off of there. All that occurred, and the lien was placed against the previous owner, with Larry Wayne Lynn, and subsequently, of course, it sold in tax deed. And Ms. Smith has probably had to clean it up again because any property that's sitting there
All the
with
junk was, sorry, all the junk was from off the property was still in the house. They are on my pictures here.
Okay, but there was no junk on the property, just
Yes,
in the mobile home.
there was some, but
Can you
not
hear her
much.
okay? Okay.
But it wasn't-
So we haven't gotten a new case on it, so the case was closed after we abated it back in 16. So the hard cost on that, what we've discussed in the past is hard cost. The abatement lien itself was $1,300. And then there was interest on that has accumulated to $451, and that was at 12%. And then the administrative staff cost was $309.52.
Okay. Thank you, Sam.
So 2609.
206052, right?
Well, I
1300.
knocked off the interest.
Well, 1,300, 451, and then 309.52 comes to 2060.52.
I just pulled the interest out.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to reduce the lien to the hard cost plus the interest plus the administrative cost.
Again, what was that dollar value?
And when I just did it real quick here, it ended up being 2060.52, but does somebody want to check my math with a calculator?
Did you say knock the interest off?
No.
Okay.
Well, then that's going to take it up to about 3,000.
No, he said
No.
451.
451 for the interest. The abatement lien was 1,300. The administrative cost was 309.
52.
52.
Yeah.
Plus the
6.
2,000 change.
Yeah, 2,000 change.
Second.
2360.52.
2060.
Is it 2060 or
2061 02.
52?
61
02.
Okay.
02.
Whatever it is. You got the same thing I got.
Let
me see this.
say.
Hold on one second.
Yeah, y'all.
It's $2,061.02.
Listen to the engineer.
Yeah, the engineer's gonna probably have it right.
We have the finance team down here to verify that.
Okay, my original amount, which was 2060.52. My original addition was correct.
1,300 plus 450.
2061.02.
No.
No, 2060.52.
You're not adding the 50 cents.
Where's
Bonier's
the 50
right.
Two
cents?
places.
Okay,
Oh
I
my
missed
God.
the 50 cents. I have
Okay.
1,300, 451, and 309.52.
Yes, ma'am.
Is it 451.50?
Yes.
451.50.
451.50.
Okay, so 2061.52.
02.
Thank you.
2061.52.
You wanna listen to Munir? He's got the
No.
right number.
02. 2051.02.
2061.
2061.02.
Correct.
Sorry.
So, Ms.
Second.
Smith.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm going to go ahead. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion will carry unanimously. Ms. Smith, we've reduced the lien, but you will still owe the county $2,061.02. And then that lien will be satisfied, and you can move forward with getting the
Praise the
property.
Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
And please tell your husband, because this is public record.
I'd run home and tell him right now, just in case anybody's watching
I think
that
you'll be
knows
all right.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to you as well.
The last item, Commissioner, from me is a walk-on item. It's a lease for Marion County Fire Rescue with the Family of God Fellowship. They are allowing us to use their facility without paying any lease during the time that we are working on Station 17 and
very
fixing
nice
some
of you.
issues within the station.
Motion to consider.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Zalek, second by Commissioner Bryant to consider the walk-on. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. So now we have the
take the public
actual
comment.
item. Do we have anyone in the public who would like to come forward to speak on this? If not, seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board.
I'll make a motion for approval and also make a statement. Thank you, Pastor Snyder, and thank you for everybody at Family of God Fellowship for doing this. This is awesome.
No, we really appreciate that. That's great public service.
Absolutely. So we've got a motion by Commissioner Moore with a second by Commissioner Zalek. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously, and with a tremendous thanks to the entire Family of God Fellowship. As well as Station 17, I hope that you'll enjoy your temporary location. Yeah.
It's a nice little house.
Okay. That takes us to committee items.
10A is request to appoint one full-term member of the Planning and Zoning Commission, and Andy Bonner received the appropriate votes.
So moved.
Second.
Excellent. We've got a motion by, who made the motion first? Commissioner Zalek to appoint Andy Bonner with a second by Commissioner Moore. For Andy Bonner, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
10B is a request to appoint one member to the Marion County Historical Commission, and Martha Rainey received the appropriate votes.
So moved.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Zalek, second by Commissioner Gold for Martha, excuse me, was that
She goes by
Judy
Judy,
Rainey?
but-
Okay.
Judy Rainey.
Okay, very good. Received the appropriate votes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
10C is a request to appoint one member to the Pine Run MSTU Advisory Council, and James Flickinger received the appropriate
So
votes.
moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Zalek, second by Commissioner Moore for James. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
And 10D is a request for reappointment of Community Services Director Cheryl Martin as the Public Sector Board Member to the Central Florida Community Action Agency Board of Directors.
So moved.
Second.
Wait, we need to talk about this.
Yeah, I was thinking about that, you know.
Just send Amanda.
We have a motion by Commissioner Zalek, second by Commissioner Moore, to appoint Ms. Martin back to that appropriate board. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously.
And finally, 10E is a request to accept the resignation of Ms. Ying from the Marion Oaks MSTU for General Services Advisory Council and approve advertisement for vacancy.
So move with the appropriate letter being sent.
Yes. Second.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Zalek, second by Commissioner Moore, to accept the resignation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Thank you. That takes us to notation for action, and let me just pause and get clarification for 11B.
11B, we are recommending a different date. The new date would be October. You should have a revised item in
Thank you.
in front of you. The new date would be October 30th, 2019 at 9 a.m. and it will be at the Marion County Public Library headquarters,
At what time?
9 a.m.
I'll move 11A through 11F with the changes, with the revised date and time for 11B to October 30th, 2019 at 9 a.m. at the Marion County Public Library headquarters.
Second.
We've got a motion by Commissioner Bryant for 11A through 11F with the appropriate revised revision to 11B. Second by Commissioner Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. That takes us into general public comment, and I would now like to invite anyone in the audience who would like to come forward to address the board on any topic to please come forward now. We look forward to hearing from you.
Henry Munoz, 495 Marion Oaks Boulevard. Number one, I want to thank Ms. Tracy for the good job she did on Marion Oaks Lane. It's looking good. We like it. And I'm glad to hear that now that Deltona is going to finally put up that second lane in Marion Oaks Manor. And hopefully, I guess I'll bring us some pictures from Marion Oaks Manor west of the boulevard. It's beginning to be like Pothole City. I think Pothole City. I thought I was back in the Bronx for a minute there.
Oh boy.
And the other concern I have is 49th Avenue. I know the state is going to be messing around at 484 and the interstate. Making the traffic flow real slowly instead of faster. And I would hope that 49th Avenue is ready to move on up through the McGintley property on up. So it's not as cumbersome on that road, 484. And I just hope to see, I just want you guys to keep the eye on that ball. I know we're so far down southwest that you miss us, but keep your eye on that ball. And let's not forget, that cloverleaf would help a great deal. That would move that traffic so much faster, they probably wouldn't even go to the interstate. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Munoz. We definitely will watch the project timelines.
Okay.
And I don't know them off the top of my head, though.
Don't do that. It's not going to work the way Mr. Munoz said.
Yeah.
We are expediting 49th Avenue as much as we can, but there will be an overlap. There's no way around it.
Yeah. So it's going to be cumbersome before it gets better.
Well, it's
coming.
My thought is if you can get through McGintley quickly, there'll be a little blockage up there on the trail and 49th, but it'll alleviate a lot of the trying to get through the interstate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Munoz.
You're right.
Roger Nectel, 12727 Southeast 97 Terrace Road in beautiful Summerfield. I just want to reminisce for the last couple of weeks. We had two tremendous storms heading towards Florida. The weather people never said there was a front coming across from the west. All they know is the computers said it's going to make a right turn. I've never seen that before when the computers said, and they had no confirmation from anything or no proof. I believe God did this 2 times. We've been blessed beyond words. Could have destroyed the state. Look what it did to the Bahamas. We are very blessed. And all I can say is keep praying. God bless you.
Amen. Thank you very much, Mr. Nechtel. Do we have anyone else in the audience who would like to come forward? If not, we'll close public comment and bring it to the board for closing comments. Commissioner Gold? Commissioner Bryant?
I'm good today.
Okay. Commissioner Moore?
Just with Umberto leaving, Tropical Storm 10 that's out there, just be cognizant that we are still in hurricane season. Don't be like I won't through a particular individual because I have to go home to her. But she has started breaking into the hurricane supplies because she thinks the hurricane season's over. So I won't mention her by name because I probably will be sleeping under the car tonight. But anyway, just be cognizant. We are still in hurricane season. Still stay kind of vigilant. Just keep aware. Pay attention to what's out there because from time to time, as that thing's coming across from Africa, it's going to hit the same trajectory, and we probably will unfortunately have another hurricane within a week or two that we'll be dealing with, or at least need to have on our radar. And the other thing is to bring back to this board on Camp Izzard. Had a very positive thing. We might be able to get 100% of it done by private funds. And by doing passive park, it requires 0 park staff anymore, since it's on something we already maintain, wouldn't require any more maintenance or any more time, so it costs us $0 recurring cost. And if we can get the capital outlay to not cost us money, we could possibly get Camp Izzard done totally. And I spoke to one of our local attorneys who might be willing to set up a 501c3 so those who donate can get a tax write-off. And then Jim also mentioned we have a ability for that. So we might be able to get everything done without costing the county 1 penny. So I'll let you know how that progresses, but it's looking better. Originally, when I first had the idea, it was like $1 million idea, and then Greg Wiley helped me get it down to 100,000, and then it's down to 50,000. Now might get the funding, so it might turn out to be something very positive. And then I can move on to Payne's Landing. I've got one more that I need to get done before I get off this commission.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Moore. Commissioner Zalek?
I just want to thank all the folks, especially over at our veterans team that brought the 9/11 memorial in. I thought that was fantastic. To see the traveling wall, to see the amount of kids and families out there during that time that it was here. Just the amount of people that event impacted. Everybody remembers pretty much where they were at, and so I'm just grateful that Marion County was able to participate in remembering that, and the fact that that stuff's etched in my core, and I don't think there was any way that I could ever forget that. And I hope that the next generation, that as we do these memorials, we're teaching them about the threat of terror in our world and how real it can be, because so often we go on with our regular lives and forget about the distinct dangers around the world, and that there are people that really hate America and what we stand for. And then as we're doing the Celebrating the Constitution, one of the greatest works that ever existed in the foundation of our country, and the providence of our country. So teach your kids something about the Constitution this week. Teach them something about the freedom that they have and the rights that they have, and based on the restrictions of government and the freedom of the people. It's a pretty astounding document that freed people for thought, innovation, and why people still drive and will walk hundreds and hundreds of miles just for an opportunity to live in a country like ours. We are so grateful, and we don't always count those blessings. So today's the day that we can remember those rights that were given to us by our founders. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Absolutely, and thank you for your comments. I'll just draw us back to one of the items that we approved earlier today was item 7F1, which that was the Bureau of Economic and Business Research population estimates. And we are today at 360,000 plus in the entire county, which takes me to the Census 2020. It's important that everyone in our county be counted whenever the census comes out, and we're going to continue to highlight this at every meeting going forward, and we want to dispel any myth that anyone who is here could be penalized for being here if they complete the census. That again is a myth. Everyone in Marion County is important, and everyone should be counted and must be counted in order for our county to get the funds that will be due them over the next 10 years. So again, more educational opportunities will be shared as time goes on, and we'll continue to stress the point that we want everyone in Marion County to be counted because you matter and you count. So with that, is there any other parting comments before we adjourn? And we will then come back together at 2 p.m. for our planning and zoning meeting. Thank you. This meeting is now in recess until 2 p.m.